Okay. Aloha to all of you. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. I'll be moderating. My name is Juan Wilson. I'm a member of the Executive Committee of the Hawaii Sierra Club Kauai Group and the publisher of Island Breath. Tonight, Oceans4Peace, which is an alliance of several peace and environmental groups on the island, is going to present a panel discussion and a talk story. Our subject tonight is the War on the Ocean and RIMPAC 2014. We'll focus on Jeju Island, Okinawa, and Hawaii. I want to take a little bit of an aside here just for you guys to look at this map. This is a map of the United States territories, test ranges, national monuments, state and island entities that fall under its authority. The red areas are the military test ranges, connected with dotted lines, which are transit corridors for things like rocket tests and various missiles that pass over from one range to another. The yellow areas with the ellipses are the new expanded National Ocean Monument areas. The light blue areas with the dark lines around them are U.S. territory and island, like American Samoa, Micronesia, Marshall Islands, the territories around those. And when you and there's also Hawaiian, the original Hawaiian National Monument. When you take all those things as a pattern of various overlying U.S. entities and organizations and military groups, and try and figure out the lines of authority, if you were an Asian trying to set a course across the ocean, I don't think you'd know where to go. It's a hodgepodge of overlapping authorities, and essentially it's a claim of control and territorial regulation of basically the entire Pacific Ocean by the United States. As human beings, our attitude about the ocean has been characterized by its use as the ultimate trash can. For us, the ocean seems able to absorb everything we throw into it. When we're small enough in numbers and our technology is immature, that has been true, but it's not so anymore. Living here on Kauai, our home, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it seems to us, and I think it is, the largest crucible of life on Earth. And it's suffering. I think we all know how much. It's not just that Americans have damaged it. It's the Japanese, the Chinese, the Koreans, the French, the Russians, etc. The Pacific Ocean has become a sushi bar, a strip mine, a junkyard, a toilet bowl, a bombing range, and a nuclear wasteland. We now face ocean acidification, global warming, climate change, rising seas, poisonous trash gyres, radioactive pollution, overfishing, and coral reef die-off. Behind this destruction have been our financial, economic, and industrial interests. Until now, it has been the cheapest, it's been cheaper just to look the other way. America's Navy has had the starring role in this drama. Securing the continuation of these large-scale destructive activities has been its purview. Our Navy adds to the mix, I'm going to have to put my glasses on, it's a little dark. There, that's much better, thank you. Our Navy adds to the mix by using radar, sonar, microwave radiation that all damage ecosystems in ways we don't even know. Worse yet are the large military exercises and weapon systems testing and intensifying the degradation of life in the ocean. As destructive as RIMPAC exercises are, they are largely just a biennial public relations effort, a satin curtain over the tip of a very sharpened spear. The PRMF open houses, the fireworks shows, the outreach, the TGI puff pieces, the balloons and the NASA liftoffs, the Rim of the Pacific joint cooperation efforts are all part of the hype. But underlying the gloss, there are many ongoing and overlapping military activities in the Pacific that we do not see advertised and are deeply troubling. For example, as RIMPAC 14 kicked off, so did Karat 14. That was a joint U.S. and Filipino Marine cooperation afloat readiness training exercise on the shores of the South China Sea, showing the Chinese what we could do there. Also, Japan just has announced its reinterpretation of its own constitution under the Abe presidency to again allow it to adopt more aggressive military postures in the Pacific. Add to this the military base expansions in Korea, Guam, and the Philippines, as well as major extensions of our military test ranges in the Mariana Islands and Hawaiian Islands. This all coinciding with the U.S. presidential executive order for a huge expansion of millions of square miles of national marine monuments that will greatly increase the regulatory rights of America in the Pacific Ocean. A pattern emerges that clarifies the purpose of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP. It is, in effect, the demand for a surrender of the Pacific Ocean to America's Asian pivot. It should be clear that the war in the Pacific has been going on since Pearl Harbor, and that from 1945 on, it's been a nuclear conflict. The same American corporations, like General Electric, that built the Fukushima nuclear power reactors, helped build the nuclear carrier strike forces that lead the RIMPAC exercises, and our nuclear submarine strategic IBM fleet that constantly threaten the world. The nuclear technology is the fist in the glove of the U.S. Navy's Pacific Command, U.S. PACCOM. PACCOM enforces the American empire over half the surface of the world, from San Diego to the Indian Ocean. The war in the Pacific may now be morphing into World War III. The conflicting resources claims in the South China Sea may be the flashpoint, and the U.S. will be at the center of the maelstrom. This downward spiral must be stopped, and us being informed helps to do that. This evening, we have a panel of 3 experts to clarify what is happening in the Pacific. After their presentations will be a Q&A and a session with Talk Story. Our panelists include, first, Jim Margolis, PhD, who is an expert on Pacific Ocean atoll ecology. He will address what happens when coral reefs are militarized, Jeju Island in South Korea. Then, Kenta Watanabe, MS. He is a tropical botanist at the Okinawa National College of Technology. He will describe the last pristine reef ecosystem in Okinawa. And finally, Catherine Music, PhD, director of the Kaua Institute here on Kauai. Her topic will be effects of RIMPAC on marine life. I want to present Jim Margolis. He's right here, and he will give the first presentation.
So I made an opportunity to visit Jeju, which is the southernmost island of South Korea. And I didn't really know much about what was going on there, and so that's how it started. Next. So Jeju is south of Korea, South Korea. And as you can see, it's in the middle of the Yellow Sea, East China Sea, and it's surrounded by many countries. Next. So this is Google Earth. It shows that South Korea is surrounded by Asian nations that have been on and off at war for more than a century. In fact, you can go back. There's more countries than these, starting in 1905 with Russia, and then we had Vietnam, Philippines, so there's been a lot of wars here. And considering our own situation where we're 5,000 miles from any enemy that we have, Korea is not, it's maybe 500 miles. This by several. Next. Whoops. I have to lower the screen there. So South Korea is still, as we know, threatened by neighbors. And Jeju Island, being where it is, right in the center of all these countries, is certainly of strategic importance. And as a result, the public of Korea announced plans to establish a naval base at the south end of the island. And this started in 2002. and it was supposed to be used for both warships and tourist ships. Next. So I really didn't know much about what was going on there, but looks like we're missing a slide here. Okay. Anyway, we visited the main village at Jeju on the south coast, where the base was going to be placed. And at the time, the protesters and the villagers that lived near there were never allowed to come into the base that started in 2002. And some of the people were incarcerated and have not been removed from, freed from being incarcerated. So we went there in June, and it was a rare opportunity to visit the site and see the protesters. Next. So it was interesting because when I was there were no American soldiers, engineers. They were all Korean. And it was interesting because they were putting together this whole massive base, and I wondered how they could get this money. Well, Samsung has put in $1 billion to put this base in, and my thinking is, and I have no proof of this, but through the SOFA agreements between the U.S. and South Korea, they probably made a deal to establish this base. Next. So the first part of this trip, we spent 2 days in Seoul, and we went to the capital. And I gave a general presentation about how to minimize the impacts of engineering on coral reefs, because I really didn't have much information at the time what was going on in Jeju. So I think it was well heard, and there's 2 other international scientists that also made presentations, Simon Ellis and Nariko Abe. Next. So when we finally reached Jeju, apparently the word got out from the parliament to be a little bit more accommodating. So we were able to not only meet with the engineers and officers in charge of this project, but they took us on boat cruises and boat, and just walk-arounds in the base. And I should mention that I came with the group with the support of Green Korea United, a great organization in Korea that is helping to monitor many projects for conservation, and that's many of the crews there. Next. So not only were people allowed into the base, but the media was allowed, and they were interviewing us. This is the first time now, and remember, this is 2002, and this is 12 years later. This is the first time they were able to go inside this base and to have have people allowed to go in. Next. As part of the meetings with the engineers, I was concerned about a couple of things. First of all, where there was going to be an ammunition pier placed at the base, which would probably lead to removal of the people from there. And then there was other issues regarding the type of rebar they were using for these special types of, I would call them caissons, that were going to be used to establish the base. So we did have an opportunity to make 5 dives and look at the corals. These corals were very important, and they were established. There's been established several different conservation measures to protect these corals. And so we established monitoring transects at 5 of these sites during actually we only had 3 days there. Next. So these are some of the quadrats that we established. The idea here is to put permanent markers on the reef so that we can determine whether the corals are going to be staying the same, growing, or declining, and that information then can be used to go back to the authorities to change their actions to protect these important corals. Next. So we could not find any true aerial photographs of this base, but given with my co-author on this, Dion, my wife, we were able to find a map showing the outline of the base at Jiangyang village at Jeju. Next. And this photograph shows, but I was able, based on that map, we were able to find through Google Earth a photograph of where the base is going to be. And what this shows here are silk curtains. So this is probably done in about 2004. So there's no maps available, no photographs, but at least we got the outline of this base. And you can see also up there how close the village is to this base. Next.
Top center.
So now these are just some of during our review of the information and the materials going on this base.
Can you move the mic closer, please?
Yeah, just hold it, just pick it up.
Okay. So this, what we're looking at here is the very expensive type of equipment that is being used to create the protective structures for this base. Part of the base itself is very deep water. In fact, the entrance channel is about 53 meters, which is more than almost 170 feet, which doesn't make any sense at all. Oh, okay, great. So this is specific, let's see if I can figure it out now. It's not very good, yeah. Forget. Anyway, these caissons are basically large blocks of concrete with rebars strengthening them. And these were placed out on the front of the base in deep water. And in the foreground, you'll see tetrapods. These were used to serve as breakwaters in shallower water. Next. They also had to dynamite some of the land area where the yard work was being done. And as you can see, the village right behind it there. And you can see the tetrapods in the working areas. Next. So we were able to find a photo of the project photographed in 2007, and you can see that there has been some major work out in the water in the distance. although there's been a lot more work since that time. And you can see how close that village is to the working area. Of course, the village itself continues to be against this project, especially not only for their own lifestyle, but because of all of these important protected areas throughout this area. So this is one of these caissons, these huge concrete blocks that are being carried outside in deep water. They wouldn't allow us to know or how deep the water was, but it was very clear that they were sinking these concrete boxes to the bottom of the ocean and then putting them up like bricks on a wall. Next. The easiest part of this thing is putting these tetrapods, because those were done in shallower water, and that's the new beacon for this harbor. Next. So in the background, you can see the area where they were constructing these caissons. And in the foreground, you can see the tetrapods. So this is a huge project. It's $1 billion or probably more at this stage. Next. So during the boat ride, I was starting to get concerned about this project because it showed these rebars that are being used to strengthen these caissons. And they're all rusted, not even before before they were putting the concrete on them. And so it's just in my own mind, so I'm wondering what is going on here and how is this going to last more than a few years without some alternative to this. Next. Inside the harbor, after they put all the caissons or the protective structures outside the base, then they have to dig out all of the excess dirt inside the basin. And so they're using a clamshell, that's that crane at the left top, and then a barge will be placed in the dirt will be placed in the barge, but not at this particular time. But they didn't explain to me where they're going to dump it. So that was another issue that I raised. Next. So this was the most telling thing. During the boat ride, we went out to the front part of this caisson, and the caissons themselves this is in very deep water, more than 100 feet. Maybe they wouldn't tell us, they wouldn't allow us to be there. But you can see it's kind of like a cookie cutter situation. They stick out and go in and out. And the idea of the engineers putting this together was that it would break the waves. But this area is subject to typhoons every summer. And in fact, the day after I left, a typhoon hit. Next. They started breaking the caissons. This isn't the first time. In 2007, several of the 7 of these caissons were knocked over by waves of a storm. And what's really bad about it is that they put these caissons and they didn't fill any material inside the boxes. And if you just think about water's got a specific gravity of 1. And if you put an empty box with concrete in the water without any fill, it's also just a little bit more than 1. So when you get big waves hitting that thing, it's gonna move. And as a result, there was a tremendous amount of loss, and it slowed down the project substantially. Next. So the 2 days after I left, or a week after I left, after they had put in brand new caissons, this time they filled them with dirt, so that gives probably the specific gravity about 3. Still, because of the shape of the caissons, you can see how it's the bevel part, that's the top of one right there. You can see how it goes in and out, but it's been just completely destroyed. And so if this is what they were planning to do, it's very clear that it isn't going to work this way. And the problem is if you're putting these caissons down at 150 feet and you haven't filled, there's no way for you to fill them at this stage. Nobody's telling us, so it's a very serious situation. And finally, I did find also rusted bent rebar removed from an earlier destroyed caisson. And if you look at that, it's clearly rusted, and it hasn't been in the water more than probably a month. And they could have gone to New Orleans and get stainless steel rods and spent some of their billions of dollars on getting reinforced stainless steel rods. Instead, they just had common, and at the meeting at the base, they told me it was this common rebar, iron rebar. Next. So, aside from the base itself, there's not been a whole lot of aloha, let's say, towards protecting these special areas that are right near the base. So if you look on the left side, you'll see that square area, that's the base. And there's 4 different areas of protection in that big area to the right. And these include protection of the biosphere. This is a UNESCO establishment. There's an island provincial maritime park, and then there's a maritime protected area, and nationally designated cultural treasures, the soft corals that live in these areas. And some of these corals are actually endemic to these islands, and then there's others that are still important as well. So there doesn't seem to be much aloha. So one of the reasons we wanted to establish these permanent transects is to make the data, have data available to convince the government, parliament, to put a stop to this project, to be sure, if in fact the corals continue to decline. Next. So these are some of these special areas. These are offshore islands. What's interesting about these is that you can see through the Google Earth image there, you can see that the rock drops pretty quickly beyond the islands. Everybody see that gray line down there? So these are very deep areas, and the corals are living in an area further away from the islands, so these soft corals are doing very well here, and that's why these are especially of importance. Next. So what we saw during our dives, we could see what was happening. First of all, the currents were being blocked because of the base. Normally, these are not normal like reef corals that basically rely on sunlight to get their food. These corals require currents to bring plankton and food to them. So if the currents are changed and they don't reach these corals, they're going to die. And so that's one issue that has been unfortunately not clearly documented yet, but will be if necessary. And the other issue here is sediment coming down on the tops of these corals, and you can see in this picture that the tops part of the rock there's no coral, and the only ones that are surviving are the ones under the underhang. Next. So what I've decided to do is, assuming that I don't think this project's going to be completed, but I'm not a sayer, but basically what I would if this thing is an absolute disaster, is to knock down the walls that block the current regimes that bring the corals food. So this is my, again, I'm just trying to get things rolling here to try to move forward on this. And in the event that the base is continued, there still is the obligation to modify the current conditions, because you can't see the base right there, but the currents are going to be pushed out. So my suggestion is to put this boomerang wall that'll redirect currents, tidal currents in both directions, and keep the corals sufficient food from the currents. So this is just my idea. Next. So anyway, I don't tend to be a major, I'm not a coastal engineer, but I am an oceanographer, and we're just trying to figure out ways to come to some agreement here and protect these areas. So I know this is a very sad situation, but I had 3 days at the place, and I'm trying to do the best we can do to try to get the government there to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And this is Kenta Watanabe.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Aloha, everybody. And I want to say the haisai. Haisai is the aloha in Okinawan language, and also in Okinawan language is endangered, like Hawaiian language. So haisai, everybody. I came here actually to the Hawaiian island last week to attend the international conference held in the University of Hawaii, and I presented some study about land plants, because I am a botanist and I'm usually studying the land plants. But this time I'd like to talk about threatened marine biodiversity in Oura Bay and Henoko area, Okinawa, Japan. And I'm very honored to be here. This time, Catherine Music, Dr. Catherine Music invited me here. And I think it's very good opportunity to show you our marine, very outstanding biodiversity of the marine creatures in our place. And this is the article on the Japan Times in Japan, and Catherine sent the letters to the Caroline Kennedy to stop dive with me in Okinawa, and it challenged your mind. It means U.S. base now move into our ocean, and they are going to destroy our marine creatures, and so if you come and dive together with us, you will find that is stupid or something. You know, I think that what she meant with this. And this is the article on the Okinawa Times, and Katie is there. So, just I'd like to introduce myself. I'm teaching the biology there in Okinawa National College of Technology, and also I'm a member of the diving team Snafkin, and so I am researching the plants on the ground, but also dive in the ocean. So this is the outline of my presentation today, and first of all, I'd like to introduce you about the Ora Bay and Henoko from geographic background of them, and the second, what is the problem, especially about the political background, and third, outstanding biodiversity there, and fourth, behind the biodiversity, and fifth, under attack, what is going on there, and sixth, what are we doing or what we have done there, and seventh, what can we do? So, and actually I'm not the politician, so I just want to talk about biodiversity. I'd like to address on this point and just talk about the politics as a background, you know. Okay. So first, I think nobody knows Ora Bay and Henoko, so I'd like to show you where it is. So this is a map, and where we are here is the pointed there. Oh. Okay. It's not. Oh, it's a little bit weak. So okay. Sorry. So we are now, of course, sure, Hawaii, and the Japan is red over there, and this is the Ryukyu Islands, the green one, and in the middle of the Ryukyu Islands, the Okinawa Island there, and yeah,
Is the blue thing Japan?
blue thing Japan and Taiwan.
And the green thing is?
Green thing is Ryukyu Islands, but it's part of Japan.
Okay.
And the Okinawa Island is in the middle of the Ryukyu Islands, and then the circle in that point. Okay. We pointed that the Ora Bay and Henoko and Kaio. I'd like to talk about those areas. And this area, East Coast, Ora Bay and Henoko. And this is an aerial photograph. And I took this photo from the airplane and Cape Henoko over there. And this bay is called Ora Bay. And this is another aerial photo. And this is quite small bay, but there are so many creatures under the water. And the red point is my college. I'm working there at Henoko, and just next to the camp shrub of U.S. Marine Corps. So I always listen to the sounds of the shooting practice from there. And this area is very famous for the northern limit of the population of dugong, and also the huge blue coral community. So now I'd like to talk about a little bit about poetic background. And the problem is the U.S. Air Base relocation. And but I like to talk about the history of U.S. base in Okinawa. So until 1609, Ryukyu was independent kingdom and independent from Japan too, but occupied by Japan. And after 1945, actually in 1945, there were the World War II, and Okinawa is only the place where battle on the ground, and 140,000, including 94,000 citizens, died in Okinawa at that battle. And 1945 to 1972, Okinawa had been occupied by U.S. and returned in 1972 to Japan. But still, U.S. base located in Okinawa, and now the 23,000 soldiers in Okinawa. That is 50% of U.S. soldiers in Japan, and area is about 450 square kilometers. It is 70% of U.S. base in Japan, while area of Okinawa is only 0.5% of Japan. So most of the U.S. base in Japan is located in Okinawa. And this is a map of Okinawa, so 18% is the U.S. base. And actually, the Futenma base is here, and actually, many people live in here. The base Futenma is located in the middle of the city. So this is very dangerous, and the Okinawa people protest to remove it. And then Japanese government and US military decided to relocate that base to the Henoko, just over there. And so Futenma Marine Corps Air Base will be relocated to Henoko, but the problem is that they will dump and bury the pristine coral reef there. And that is the problem. And in 2013 January, all Okinawa mayors opposed to relocation within Okinawa, but it's ignored by the Japanese government. And 2013 December, last year, Okinawa governor agreed to relocation within Okinawa, traded with the 30 million US dollar. And but the strong opposition by citizens and party, but he did. And 2014 July this year, Mayor Inamine of Nao City was re-elected, and he strongly opposed to the relocation. I'm sorry, my English is not good, but if you don't understand, please let me know. And this is the map of the Henoko and Oro Bay, and this is a brand new air base here. And also they bury these places for the construction. So from now, I'd like to talk about the outstanding biodiversity there. So nature of Oro Bay and Henoko area. This is much easier to talk for me, 2007, discovery of huge blue coral community, and that was a very big news for us. And 2009, crustacean surveyation was carried out, and 510 described species and 39 unknown species and 29 new species were found there. And 2010, marine algae expedition was carried out, and 182 species and 4 unknown, undescribed species were found there. And many reports on new species or new to Japan have been published every year in recent. And this is a biodiversity in Ora Bay and Henoko. So actually this is a number of the species found in the Ora Bay and Henoko area. And marine mammal 1 is dugong, and marine reptile 9. And number of species in Japan is indicated here. And so the percentage in Japan is 69. So there are 9 species out of 13 species in Japan. And the fish, 1,040, so it means 27%. And stony corals, 425 species. It's ridiculous, but over the 100%. And benthos, 3,428. Snails, clams, 1,400, and clams, 500, and crustacean, 567. You know, it's just very small, small bay, but they have so many species. And this is very surprising result, I think. And algae, 387, seagrass, 16. So this is a hot spot of the biodiversity under the ocean. And these lists are showing the newly described species in recent years, and the reference is the scientific journal, so there are new family and new species and new genus, and some of them are endemic to this area. And still, many species which have no name yet. So the photo and creatures on this screen is still have no name yet. And there are various environments. I'd like to talk to you. So from the forest, mangrove, and tidal flood, rocky shore, and seagrass bed in reef corals, planty bottoms, and rocky slopes, sandy bottoms, out reef corals. So I like to show you one by one. So the story starts from the river, because the water supply starts from the rainfall, and rain gathering together, and that make river stream, and that carry the nutrients of the forest down to the mangrove and the ocean. So, and this is a map of Ora Bay again, but I indicated the green area. The green area is the land area, but when the rain fall inside that green area, all the water will run into Ora Bay. So I like to regard Ora Bay, including these forests, including these green area too. And this is the mangrove at the mouth of the Ora River, and this is the second largest mangrove forest in Okinawa Island. And there are many rare species like these fishes and shrimp. And this is a tidal flood just away from the mangrove. And there are many soldier crabs. I don't know whether you know them or not, but this species are also newly described, 2009. and this is endemic to Ryukyu Islands. And also other birds coming here to eat soldier crabs. And mud skippers, and actually this is endangered, critically endangered species. And there are seagrass beds, and dugong rely on this seagrass because they always eat the seagrass like this. Actually, this seagrass bed is the largest in Okinawa Island. And there are also sea algae forest, Sagasan forest near Henoko. And the coral communities like this, massive Porites offshore, Serake, and very huge branching Porites communities like this. And also, not only in the coral reefs, but also in the sandy bottom, there are some special creatures there. And usually the new species found on these kind of sandy bottom and muddy bottom. So we have to take it into consideration. And this is a kind of the soft coral. And this is red kind of comb jellyfish. And also kind of the soft coral. I don't know how can I say it in English, and this substrate is now getting muddy, but still many creatures living there. And also still there is the corals, and this is very interesting species. The sea snail over there, but the stony corals living on his back, you know. So we always call it as the walking stony coral. And getting more muddy, but still there are many kind of specialized coral species, stony coral species. And this is a kind of Goniasporea stony coral species, and so huge community, 20 meters by, I don't know, maybe 100 meters. And there are several sea cucumbers, and all of them are new to Japan, actually. So recently we found it. And this is also sea cucumber, but the world's largest sea cucumber, and still not described it scientifically yet. And another sea cucumber, but it's also undescribed species. 3 meters, yeah. Probably the largest benthos in the world. And this is a stony slope, and still there are many algae, Halimeda species there. And algae, marine algae, and also the sea grasses. And there are 8 meters tall Sagason forest. Actually, this is very special because usually this kind of tall marine algae is absent in coastal reef area. And reef edges, there are many coral reefs. And this is a famous huge blue coral community, 30 meters and long and 20 meters width. So I'd like to think about what is behind this outstanding biodiversity there. So one is the various environment and its connection. So we saw the mangrove over there, and the tidal flat, and seagrass bed, and coral reefs in reef, and sandy bottom, and muddy bottom, and rocky slopes, and coral reef. So those environment is very heterogeneously exist and all connected with each other continuously. So these various environment support the biodiversity there. And another thing is geographical features. This is a map of the underwater, and in Ora Bay, deepest point is about 60 meters deep, and this canyon in the south, and shallows at the mouth of the bay over here. This is very special geographical feature because this place is a kind of similar to the lagoon in the, how can I say? I will tell you later. Sorry. So usually the coral reefs in Okinawa is fringing reef, and fringing reef is just near the coastal line, and usually shallower than 10 meters. However, the barrier reef has the deep lagoon, and the depth is more than 20 meters. So this deep area is something like lagoon, and this is unusual to the Ryukyu Islands, and we think that probably the biodiversity found there is probably because of this geographical feature, we think. And this is barriered by this shallow ridge, so the waves are softened. And so now, return to the political problem. So they are now burying this place, and this place is very important because if they bury these places, it's very probably the water current will change dramatically, and that affect not only that place directly, but also the indirect effect can be occur in all other places. So, but now government to extend a restricted area for fishing 2 kilometers off the coast of Henoko. It means we can't study or research the marine creatures no more. So they try to prevent us to study further. No, sorry. But Nago Mayor still conveys his opposition, and he came to U.S. and he stated his opposition to the U.S. government, but it's ignored, especially by Japanese government, because Japanese government want to supply the good place to the U.S. Army, military. And boring will start in this July, and 3.5 million truckload and 2,100 cubic kilometers will be dumped in Ora Bay soon. So it's already terminated. So what can we do? We have to think about it. But before that, what we are doing and what we have done, I'd like to show you briefly, just briefly. We are the diving team Snafke, and our goal is just knowing and recording and sharing by the photo show and homepage and website and booklets, and providing information to researchers and study nature, but like this. And we perform many photo shows locally, like this, and many specimens of shells and sea algae and diorama and water tank and posters and newly discovered scientific reports and diorama of the shells and field study with local people and educational program, environmental education programs, and identification class of seashells and sea kayaking, microscopic observations, and drawing of marine creatures, and t-shirts, bags with marine creatures, and publishing booklets. We are doing like these things to educate and to show the to let them know what is under the water. But and we believe that will help conservation of the marine life, but maybe it's too late. I'm not sure what we can do. But what we can do is probably just describing the nature and introduce those nature to other people like this here. So this is so we start from knowing and sharing with people and acting like study program and research program. We are doing and continuously doing these things. And what can we do now? How can we stop them? I think do what we can do. That's all we can do. So I don't know the answer for this question. But we submitted several statements, and the statement from Japanese Society of Ecology was done. 2000 March, the statement of conservation of dugong and coral reef in Henoko, and last year we submitted the statement of request for cancellation of reclamation involved with construction of new U.S. base in Henoko and Ora Bay in Nago City, Okinawa. And will also Catherine help us. So we continue doing these things, and we are not politicians, so we just doing like these things. So I'd like to summarize this presentation. So first, outstanding biodiversity were found in Ora and Henoko. And behind this biodiversity, variety and connectivity of environments and special topography were there. And threatened, now this biodiversity is threatened and under attack. And our approach is to knowing and sharing, but we have to save that environment. It's urgent, so please tell us what we can do, what we should do, and we think together about it, please. And we have published several books, and I brought them here, so please look at them later. And also, we have a website there, auraone.com, so please visit there. You can get many other photos and also the movies available there, so please.
Can you send your PowerPoint to Catherine so she can send it to us?
Oh yeah, sure, of course. If there are any questions, please. No? Oh, later. Okay. Thank you for listening. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Kente. There you go. Are you going to do a slide presentation? You're up. All right, next is Catherine Music, PhD.
Stand up here. Okay, I thank you so much. I dived last year in Odawan, and it's the last wonderful ecosystem left in Okinawa. So this is, he didn't mention that this is the last one. This is quite unusual and beautiful. So we have a choice here, and I think the answer to the question is we all have to choose. Are we going to choose harm? Is this right? Harm or harmony? And so, next. That's me being a turtle when I was little. That's my mother and my big brother. And I'm here because I love the ocean. I was in Puerto Rico when they were bombing Vieques. They were practicing over there. And so everywhere I've lived in my life, there have been military action in the water. It's very scary. Next. This is why I love the ocean. I just love it where it's warm and comfortable. And I studied sea fans. I saw these as a little girl. They wave around in the ocean with the currents. These are octocorals. Kenta showed you several. The blue coral in Okinawa is an octocoral. Next. And so I became a marine biologist because I wanted to be in the ocean. This is me in 1978 in a submarine going off of Makapu'u in Oahu. Next. I've named species of coral in Hawaii, Japan, Fiji, and New Zealand. There are hundreds of coral species here still undescribed in Hawaii. Octocorals is what I study. So if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they have 8 tentacles, and they're little creatures that, this is like a millimeter, and they live together and they make a skeleton. This is one I named. It's very unusual. Octocoral. It flashes. So olapa means flashing in Hawaiian. Lepidizis was the genus. So I gave this to my parents as their grandchild. Lepidizis olapa music. So it's unbelievable what's here in the deep water. So that I'll be talking about that because of what RIMPAC is doing in the deep water. Iridogorgia, another octocoral. Next. Octocorals, black corals, crinoids. It's amazing under there. Next. The black corals you know because of jewelry for blacks. Next. These are not like octocorals. These only have 6 tentacles. So here's a polyp with 6 tentacles. Hexacoral. It's related to the hard corals. Next. Beautiful. These are some of the same ones that are in Jeju. The black currant Kuroshio comes up from the Philippines and it splits and goes up to Jeju and to Okinawa. And so a lot of the octocorals that I studied last year for an environmental impact assessment in Jeju are familiar to me. These are Siphonogorgia. So back to regular coral. The story about corals is that they're animals and they are male and female. Here are eggs coming out of a coral. Next. Oh, could we do that DVD? These are the babies. Once the egg is fertilized, if a male coral has sperm and sends it in the current to the female, and then these little planula are called planula, the larvae. They're only a millimeter or less than a millimeter. They have little hairs on them, so they can swim, they can move. I have a DVD of a swimming larva. There we go. Tiny. But they can hear. If you these little tiny corals, if you put a bunch of them in a bowl and you put a speaker playing the sounds of a coral reef, like snapping shrimp or grunting gruntfish, they listen and they head over to it, and then they land and they choose where to be. When we're throwing 230 decibels of sonar out there, we're interrupting these creatures listening. There's no data about what sonar does to these little corals, but you can imagine. They don't have ears, but they have little hairs, and they're like our hairs in our ears. They're very sensitive to sound. They look for a place that's safe. They want a hard substrate, and they want a certain amount of light. It's remarkable. Tiny, tiny little creatures looking for home. If we sediment the bottom, like they're planning to do in Henoko, then there won't be a place for them to land. If we blast them with sonar, they'll be in trouble too. Okay, go back to the slideshow. So after the babies land, at the bottom end, they put out a skeleton. And here we go, next slide. And next, they begin a little coral skeleton. And then the top end, they have a mouth and tentacles. This is a 12, you can count 12, so this is a hexacoral, multiples. And then each polyp divides to make more, and then it makes a lovely coral. And then the whole colony together, next, is home for all the other creatures. It's the basis of what's going on out there, whether we're talking deep or shallow water. Then I'm talking about corals because that's my specialty, but we have here in Hawaii over 20 species of whales that are going to be affected by impact. So the sperm whale is 80 feet long, and my little planula is a millimeter. So we're talking very tiny animals up to the very biggest ones are all affected by the sonar out here. There's an amazing young woman in Florida. She's studying the mantis shrimp. It's one of the strongest animals on the planet for body length. It has these, like a praying mantis, it's got these, it can just jab you, it can rip through your finger. Turns out that she's been studying these next. They're very pretty. They live in burrows, and they talk to each other. They rumble. Each one has its own rhythm. She's managed to record these animals underwater in the kelp beds off of California. There's a dawn chorus. They come out at dawn and they rumble, and I can tell you and you and you. Each one has its own signature. So in her TED Talk, she talks about these, and when a container ship goes over, it just blasts them all away. Just, they can't hear each other. So we humans are ruining the environment, not even during impact, but just in general with all of our container ships and our drilling for oil and searching. So the point being that we all have to pay attention to these creatures, big and small. They all care about sound. Here comes Rimback. Noisy. One whole month of this. Next. It's unbelievable. They're here right now. Next. This is a video. Play that. 3 of these cost, there's going to be a missile being shot here. Does that go? Yeah. 1, and then another one. 3 of those cost $2 million. We're just blowing up the ocean, and we're spending a lot of money. Just what Hanabusa said, this is for cooperation on our planet. They're just part of the Aegis missile. This is the other thing in Korea. We are providing the Aegis missiles for the base in Jeju that Jim talked about. Submarines, there's 6 submarines, 50 warships, 200 airships. They're all out here in our waters right now. So they use sonar to find submarines. And it's thought that the warship's sonar disrupts the dolphin's ultrasound. Next. As you know, the waves are sent out and they hit the object and they come back again. So this is really interesting that a whisper is 30 decibels and a lawnmower is 107. I have a new pet. I have a pet turtle that was given to me. It's actually from China. It goes crazy when the lawnmower goes by. I think these numbers are for human ears. Other animals are much more sensitive. This is where pain begins. This is permanent hearing loss, and this is what we have out here, 230. This is a logarithmic scale. It's hard to explain. It's 10,000 times more powerful than they can endure, and so the whale's hearing is lost, and their lungs explode, and they die. So everyone's always pointing the finger to the Japanese because they kill whales. We're killing whales. We're not even eating them. We're just killing them, and they fall to the bottom of the ocean. The Navy has gotten a permit to do that. They are allowed a certain take. Next. Yeah, this is 10,000 times louder than a 747 taking off. It's dreadful. And yes, and people, I've been amazed this summer talking about RIMPAC. Most people don't know about RIMPAC. People living here don't know about it. People visiting here don't know about it. And it's been going on since 1971, every 2 years. The hemorrhaging of the internal organs, hearing loss, and all this is data for whales, but we don't even know what it's doing to the shrimps and the crabs and the corals. There's no data out there. This is wonderful. Look at this. This is a movie. Please hit it again. Watch this. This is going? Oh, no, the one before. Not this one. This is the last slide. Can we go back one, please? This. This has sound with it. There, I can see something going. Do you have sound, please? No. Oh. I can see the numbers here. This is it's a beautiful film of a missile taking off above the Pacific Missile Range, and you can see the curve of the Earth. There we go. This is PMRF. These are GMO fields. You can see as we go along the curve of the Earth. This is our planet. Look at that beautiful Earth. That's it. Okay. So the last slide is trying to answer Kenta's question, what do we do? These are turtles. And I began with a turtle and I end with a turtle. They give each other a high five. Watch this. There we go. Yeah. We are a small group, but we just have to keep encouraging each other. And I see turtles out here every day when I swim, and they're much older creatures than we are. Turtles have been around for millions of years. So first I'd like to say mahalo to Kalasara, who helped me put this show together. And then next slide, I'd like to say Nihe Debiru, which is Okinawan, for thank you, mahalo. I'm very privileged to have both Jim Margos and Kenta with me today. We're talking about the same problem. It's the same ocean, it's the same planet, and we're destroying it. And it's not going to come back. These corals are thousands of years old. The oldest living creature on Earth, older than the Joshua trees, is a black coral. right here in Hawaii. And we're just sonaring it to death. We have to change our ways, and we all have to communicate better and faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
What I'm doing, I go to schools and we do water drop of light. Would you please do this? Water drop, water drop. Water drop, and you might make your hand like that, and then water drop of life is a heart, isn't it? Yeah. Water drop, floating in the sky. Water drop, dropping to the sea. Water drop, dancing in the waves. Mizudama, Mizudama, umi. So I did it in English and Hawaiian here with 40 second graders. In Japan, we did it in Japanese, Mizutama, Mizutama, and I got it in Spanish. So our earth is a water drop, and that's what I say to kids. Our earth is a water drop. I'm a water drop. You're a water drop. We should all behave more like water, and when we get together, we coalesce and we make a lake or a river or a rainbow instead of fighting. Why are we fighting all the time? We're with China, right now China's over here, but then according to the Pacific Pivot, which is why Jeju and Okinawa are important, we're against China so that Samsung can have construction projects. It's mostly about construction. Okinawa is full of tetrapods. There's Kent and I went swimming at Kalia. There's no beach like that in Okinawa. It's all covered with caissons and cement. And the last place that's left is the one you just described. And the mayor is against it, and 75% of people are against it, but the prime minister has decided that we're just going to make a base there. And it was supposed to start next January, after the election this fall, but they started it this July. 3.7 million truckloads of sand. It's impossible. So that's why I asked Carolyn Kennedy to come down. I thought maybe she could do something about it, but because it's not in her job description. So this is really important too for Kenta to come here and speak up, because it's a political problem. The scientists in Japan are not speaking up. They're describing the species, but they're not advancing science. This is a very brave thing that he's done. Come here today.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to have some questions of the panel, if you have any. Anybody have any specific questions of the panel? No?
Well, I would like to have both of your PowerPoints distributed. I think that that's it's valuable because it's great to hear it, but we need to hold it.
I imagine they could be put on the Oceans4Peace website, make it available for download. We can get onto that. Okay, thank you.
Yes, for Kenton. When you were showing, I guess, the photo show, you know, and things like that, is there any way that you could have a connection with the U.S. mainland or continent, you know, to show some schools and things there? Because people have a tendency of getting more passionate, you know, when they see something like that, and then it's related to educate them as to how our U.S. military, you know, is doing detrimental things to the last vestiges, you know, whether that's an option.
Thank you very much for your advice. I think, yeah, if we could, yeah, we want to do that. We are willing to do that, but we have no connection right now. So, and
Yeah, the mayor just went to Washington and he didn't get any response. Really, yeah.
actually, I think photo show is quite effective because before we started this photo show, nobody knows about, nobody knew about the life under the water. But about 7 years ago, we started this photo show, and they said that, usually said, oh, it's astonishing to see that, and much easier to understand the biodiversity itself, because there are thousands of the pictures of the creatures there, and much easier to understand, feel it, than reading books or talking, just listening the words of biodiversity or something like that, but just look at those thousands of pictures. So I think it's quite effective, and if we could, we want to do that. We want to send the photo to the US.
It's all volunteer, right? He's got a real job. His wife and he put together these pamphlets. This is an incredible amount of work. This is his spare time. Scott. I mean, look at this. This puts Americans to shame. This is
120 sea slacks. Do you know sea slacks? The all photo taken in this water, and also the 80 genera of the corals, stony corals.
When I dived there last year, I felt like I was a kid again. It's a living coral reef. It's so unusual in the world. The Great Barrier Reef we know is dying. These reefs here are dying, and this is a very special spot.
I'm glad that you guys have done this. I appreciate the free presentation. And it's clear that it's being done for America's plan to control the Pacific militarily.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think any amount of money or jobs, and, you know, like Schatz calls it the jewel of the Pacific, you know. These kinds of things are not good.
Well, and once it's demolished, it's not coming back. And
Once
it
it's
depends on
demolished,
one prime minister of this
yeah.
year, and then he might be away next year. You know, we have, the politicians are not in charge
But
anymore.
we're so stuck on the military budget, it's
Yeah.
like an addiction.
Yes.
Did you say that you're not allowed to study that anymore, that they've closed it off to you?
Because you know they mean the Ministry of Defense of Japan tried to eradicate us from that water area, so we can't go into that area anymore.
They've taken over the fisherman's port, and they're going to change the way the river is, and they're beginning this July instead of next year, because they're doing an end run around the mayor and the new governor. The new governor will be voted in against this plan, but it's too late already. It's so scary, it's so severe. And the same thing I brought here, Kauai is the same thing. I was at the Smithsonian, and so I asked my buddies just to print me up a list of the species around Kauai. There's 1,000 of things already described, but most of them are not described. We have thousands of species that are new. The scientists are in the museum. They're not out there. We have so much work to do in basically education, but it's incredible to me. I thought if I could just write books and talk on the radio, everybody would say, well, sure, it's alive, let's keep it. But it doesn't happen. It just keeps being demolished. They bombed Vieques in Puerto Rico. They're bombing out right here, just south of Niihau. They're doing target practice. They even did target practice over in Aliomanu. I have a friend who said when he was a kid here, he was riding his bicycle, and he was 12, and he found some ordnance. He dug it up and brought it home to his dad, and he said, my dad just kicked me up the butt. He said he was so upset. It's still alive. They were shooting, during World War II, they were shooting at Kauai. We, American battleships. Training, right? We keep doing this, and in my lifetime, I've seen most of it disappear. I'm 66. When I was 2, it was pretty everywhere. And it's not. This is the last reef left on Okinawa Island. And so we have to get the military doing something else. In fact, we just had the trichodesmiums. We just had an orangish, greenish slime come to this island. It was from secrets and quarries and Maoloa'a and Anahola. And it's probably because of the 55 warships that came to Oahu in June. And they're all dumping their sewage into the ocean. And the sewage is full of phosphorus, and this new species, maybe, they brought it in their bilge. This is trichodesmium, it's a kind of cyanobacteria. just the presence of 55 warships is changing our environment over here, not to even mention the sonar or the missiles.
Got a question here.
No, I have more like a comment.
Oh, comment, sure.
Okay. Hey everybody, my name is Robert.
Hi, Robert.
I enjoy being here. Thank you all very much for sharing your hard work. And I feel all the despair and the anger. I feel the sadness, the hopelessness. What do we do? Help us. What's going on? There's a world here that we all live on. Japanese, we're not Americans, we're not Germans, we are Earth beings. We really are all here together. And there's a madness that keeps us crazy here. And they don't seem to make sense. They don't really seem to pay attention to what's going on in the world, or they don't either that, or just basically they don't care. I'm not really a religious man, but I do understand the power of prayer. And I have seen it work so clearly and so strongly in my life. I sat in a courtroom once in Arizona. I was being sued for some guy to try to steal my land. It was crazy. 3 years I went through this stuff. I sat in that courtroom and I sent love to this attorney that was over there. I did ho'oponopono. I said, God, please forgive this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing. I forgive him. I send love to him. God's honest truth. The judge walked in. We all stood up. Please have a seat. Everybody sits down. When anybody's been in a courtroom, we've all seen that before. I kept sending love to this guy. This guy ran out of the courtroom, the attorney. Ran out. And to this day, I know it was because of the power of love, the power of prayer, not the power of anger, not the power of beating them overhead, protesting. It doesn't seem to work. We did protest. Yeah. We've got to tap into our higher power, our prayer. Most people on this planet have given up. We've lost faith. We've lost trust. We forgot that part. And it's so important that we regain that place, because this world, we're going protesting, trying to stop governments that could care less about us. It doesn't work, guys. We have to send love to the world. We have to send love to each other. We have to send love to the oceans. We have to get right back inside ourselves. And that's the only way we're going to make a change on this planet. I know that's my truth anyway. So blessings to everybody, that all the work that we're doing. Please try to go into prayer. It works. I know it does.
Thank you very much. All right. Questions?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing he was going to say. I'm Auntie Aggie from Anahola, and I think each one of us can go home tonight and do one thing. We can send love there to Oura Bay and ask for protection and love to surround that bay, and that the powers beyond what we can see help them and us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the first gentleman mentioned that all these caissons were being built right there.
Yeah.
My question is, who is supplying the raw materials to make that concrete? And maybe it is linked to other countries. You said in your presentation, I think I heard you say that no one seems to know whether it's the U.S. government or the Korean government that set this up. But I think we need to find out who is supplying all this stuff. And maybe we can have an effect on those suppliers by perhaps boycotting whatever else they make.
Well,
Samsung. Boycott Samsung.
Okay.
I don't buy Samsung equipment because Samsung is being.
Samsung is funding the base out there. Now, as far as the Aegis destroyers, those are U.S. ships that are going to be coming in and using that base. So there's no, so the Aegis destroyers are the ones that are going to be U.S. definitely, because nobody else has those. As far as materials, Samsung can get it anywhere. They put in at least $900 million on that base, and it's been a lot more than that because of all the downtime and so as far as concrete, I don't know that much about the island there, but probably not from there. Yeah.
It's,
But again, it's a lost cause right now from my standpoint. And my feeling right now is I'm gonna try to clean up my presentation and try to go to Tulsi and try to get her to go talk to the president. One of the things I can do, I did get some very high medals from the Department of Army, Department of Interior, and I consider those things as a passport to talk to the people in government, and I'm going to do that in this particular case.
Thank you.
Marge, you were talking about lines of responsibility. One of the things you know, I'm sure, and that we all probably, if you don't know, ought to be aware of, is that the agent business system was developed right here, developed and tested right here. This is where it came from. Right out there on the Mama Plain was where it was made, and that a lot of these bases that we're talking about, this shield against the Pacific Rim, is the defense we have against whatever's coming at us, and it's coming out of here. And it's our responsibility to deal with that in some way. With the people that live here and work on those systems have an understanding of what the larger implications of their activities are. Because it isn't just defending America, it's also helping to destroy the Pacific Ocean.
and one comment about the cement. For example, Okinawa is karst, calcium carbonate. It's 250 million years old, Okinawa, as opposed to 5 million, which we are in Kauai. We are basalt, and Jeju is basalt and andesite. A lot of these octocorals are on the andesite, different kinds of volcanic materials, very young. So their cement is not coming from there. They're taking mainland rock and blasting it into cement. And burning up the coal to kill the cement releases both the mercury in the coal and the mercury in the rock. And so that's why the tuna have so much mercury in their tissues, is that we are putting mercury into the sky, and it falls into the ocean, and the fish are swimming in it. So we are unleashing mercury that otherwise would have been geologically safe, in a rock or in coal. So this is a really important question. Those caissons are huge. The typhoon last year in Jeju, they blew off, 2 huge caissons just blew off, and something like 50,000 tetrapods that are all, they're huge. They're all just fell on top of the corals in the bottom of the sea. And so we're obliterating the mountains and grinding them up and making cement to put on the edges of the ocean.
Person here?
Oh, in regards to that, because the processing of cement, from what I understand, is one of the worst environmental hazards we have. There's also a lot of byproduct chemicals that are added in things, and as these things break down, do you know what kind of chemicals are in a lot of these and how they're affecting the reef as well?
I just didn't have enough time to examine that. In fact, we were fortunate to even get on the base. But the tetrapods and the caissons are both are concrete, and they are making them there. I saw a photo, and I really don't know right now, but I think Samsung will know.
It's toxic.
Right. Oh,
And
absolutely.
Afghanistan, we have bases, we have 1,000 bases all over the world. They're all cement. We are making cement out of the planet.
It's one of the dumping grounds for all the toxic chemicals and heavy metals, as opposed, and along with many other things. But cement is one places I understand that they really get away with just dumping stuff. And so, that's what I was asking.
And it's not they, it's
Yeah,
we.
yes ma'am, thank you.
They're dumping it right now because they didn't know any better how to design that base.
Yeah.
That's why they're dumping it.
If you remember, probably 20 years ago in Colorado, I believe it was, they were using uranium mine tailings and mixing concrete up and pouring it into the slabs for elementary schools.
Wow.
They had to actually break up those slabs and take them away. They found they were so radioactive because they were using uranium tailings for concrete. You had one.
Have the protests ended in Jeju? Or
No.
they still continuing to go
No,
on?
they will continue, and like I said, they were actually came into the leadership of the town right nearby. They came in and talked to the officers and the engineers.
That's why Jim went. They had last year's protest, they had hundreds of nuns and Buddhist priests linking hands, and the police came and broke their wrists. The mayor against it was arrested, and he went on a fast for 70 days, and they only begged him to eat again because he's their leader. People have been protesting, and that's why Jim went, is that people are so tired of protesting for the last decade. And in Okinawa too, my friends, and you guys are there, they get up every day, and they've been sit-down striking every day for Tenma Base, every day for the last
I have to say the
17 years. You know?
Korea really did a good job in organizing this and having us talk to the parliament at the Capitol. And I did have a chance to talk to the representative for Jeju. And so I'm going to try to work with her. She's a new member, and I'm going to try to work with her to turn things around there.
One of the blowbacks, I remember reading an article just recently about the demonstrations in Okinawa about the Osprey helicopters and trying to get them out of there. But one of the places they may be redirected besides Guam is here.
No, but they have 24 now in Okinawa, and they're making 100. The Japanese are now working with the Americans and making 100 Ospreys for Okinawa.
Yeah.
They have not redirected them here.
Oh, is that right?
No, we
Well,
have.
Okay.
There are at least some coming here.
You have
That's
them
right.
Oahu, absolutely, but they're not because they're leaving Okinawa.
Here,
Yeah,
they're
here.
coming here.
Yes, okay,
That's what
Hawaii.
I've heard.
Yes. It may be Nihao, right? Ospreys are unlikable because they fly like they take off like a helicopter and they fly like a plane, and so they crash a lot.
And they're also very noisy.
They're noisy.
Actually, Osprey usually hovering over our college every day.
I think it's about 7 o'clock. I think we should wrap up pretty soon. Any last questions or comments? Okay. Oh, you. Good.
Just, I guess another one, quick thing over here. I know that you were talking about, I believe it was like the siltation of Ora Bay.
Siltation.
Siltation, yeah.
You know, is that due in part just by natural causes, you know, with
Natural
topography and things like that?
Natural causes, yeah.
Okay, and I'm assuming that's a detriment then to the coral, you know, or is that just part of the natural process?
Yeah, natural process, and usually the nutrients flow from the mountainside and also from the mangroves, and also from the other side. I mean the ocean area, open ocean, and they mixed in the deep hollow, right, and sedimented over there, and that is naturally happened, and there are many creatures adapted to this environment too. So this is natural thing.
Is it filling up, you know, I mean, the shallows, you know, other canyon down there, or?
Not so many times in 1 year. Maybe the typhoon come
Right.
and silt coming up, but that is a part of nature. So it's not.
So it's not like
problem.
U.S. Marine made or anything like that?
No.
This is like just, you know,
Not yet.
They're coming, it's coming from the Oro River, right, down the valley. of the
Yeah,
Oro
yeah,
River.
yeah.
That's the other point. 3.7 million truckloads of sand are coming from somewhere else, so they're screwing up one place and bringing in alien species to this place, and so they're ruining both. I mean,
So the
it's
introduction.
huge amounts. But the construction companies win; they get all the jobs.
It's a contract.
Can I have a quick?
Okay, one last one, Marge, I think it's 7
Okay.
o'clock.
Mangrove, why are they growing mangrove? It's a pest here. Can we turn it into something? What do you do with a mangrove?
Mangrove.
I get it, it's in Chicago.
It's a
The
wood,
mangroves
it's
are,
natural.
they are a pest here, but not there. That's part, mangrove roots claim land, and they are good in Okinawa and Indonesia and other places. Here they ruin the fish ponds. Right?
The mangroves here are Florida red mangroves that were brought here about the end of the 19th century, about 1890. And they were established both in Molokai near the southern coast and He'ea in Kaneohe. and they're about the same time. And they are a pest because they were never established here on their own. But I tried to work with Walter Riddy to actually do a project on Molokai to try to figure out a way to use those mangroves. But again, it's missing all the other pieces except for the mangrove crabs.
But you could make them into charcoal. They sell charcoal in Okinawa at Mekman from Indonesia. It's illegal to take mangroves in most parts of the world now, but they're doing it and selling it as charcoal. So you could make it into charcoal here.
Thank you.
For the barbecue for next July 4th.
On that pleasant note, I think it's time to call it a night. Thank you very much for coming out. Hope to see you again at another event.
Three meters, yeah. Probably the largest bentos in the world. And this is a stony slope, and still there are many algae, Halimeda species there. And algae, marine algae, and also the sea grasses. And there are 8 meters tall Sagason forest. Actually, this is very special because usually this kind of tall marine algae is absent in coastal reef area. And reef edges, there are many coral reefs. And this is a famous huge blue coral community, 30 meters and long and 20 meters width. So I'd like to think about what is behind this outstanding biodiversity there. So one is the various environment and its connection. So we saw the mangrove over there, and the tidal flood, and seagrass bed, and coral reefs in reef, and sandy bottom, and muddy bottom, and rocky slopes, and coral reef. So those environment is very heterogeneously exist and all connected with each other continuously. So these various environment support the biodiversity there. And another thing is geographical features. This is a map of the underwater, and in Ora Bay, deepest point is about 60 meters deep, and this canyon in the south, and shallows at the mouth of the bay over here. This is very special geographical feature because this place is a kind of similar to the lagoon in the, how can I say? I will tell you later. Sorry. So usually the coral reefs in Okinawa is fringing reef, and fringing reef is just near the coastal line, and usually shallower than 10 meters. However, the barrier reef has the deep lagoon, and the depth is more than 20 meters. So this deep area is something like lagoon, and this is unusual to the Ryukyu Islands, and we think that probably the biodiversity found there is probably because of this geographical feature, we think. And this is barriered by this shallow ridge. So the waves soften. And so now, return to the political problem. So they are now burying this place. And this place is very important because if they bury these places, it's very, probably the water current will change dramatically. And that affect not only that place directly, but also the indirect effect can be occur in all other places. So, but now government to extend a restricted area for fishing 2 kilometers off the coast of Henoko. It means we can't study or research the marine creatures no more. So they try to prevent us to study further. No, sorry. But Nago Mayor still conveys his opposition, and he came to U.S. and he stated his opposition to the U.S. government, but it's ignored, especially by Japanese government, because Japanese government want to supply the good place to the U.S. Army and military. And boring will start in this July, and 3.5 million truckload and 2,100 cubic kilometer will be dumped in Ora Bay soon. So it's already so what can we do? We have to think about it. But before that, what we are doing and what we have done, I'd like to show you briefly, just briefly. We are the diving team Snafke, and our goal is just knowing and recording and sharing by the photo show and homepage and website and booklets, and providing information to researchers and study nature, but like this. And we perform many photo shows locally, like this, and many specimens of shells and sea algae and diorama and water tank and posters and newly discovered scientific reports and diorama of the shells and field study with local people and educational program, environmental education programs, and identification class of seashells and sea kayaking, microscopic observations, and drawing of marine creatures, and t-shirts, bags with marine creatures, and publishing booklets. We are doing like these things to educate and to show to let them know what is under the water. But and we believe that will help conservation of the marine life, but maybe it's too late. I'm not sure what we can do. But what we can do is probably just describing the nature and introduce those nature to other people like this here. So this is so we start from knowing and sharing with people and acting like study program and research program. We are doing and continuously doing these things. And what can we do now? How can we stop them? I think do what we can do. That's all we can do. So I don't know the answer for this question. But we submitted several statements, and the statement from Japanese Society of Ecology was done. 2000 March, the statement of conservation of dugong and coral reef in Henoko, and last year we submitted the statement of request for cancellation of reclamation involved with construction of new U.S. base in Henoko and Ora Bay in Nago City, Okinawa. And will also Catherine help us. So we continue doing these things, and we are not politicians, so we just doing like these things. So I'd like to summarize this presentation. So first, outstanding biodiversity were found in Ora and Henoko. And behind this biodiversity, variety and connectivity of environments and special topography were there. And threatened, now this biodiversity is threatened and under attack. And our approach is to knowing and sharing, but we have to save that environment. It's urgent, so please tell us what we can do, what we should do, and we think together about it, please. And we have published several books, and I brought them here, so please look at them later. And also, we have a website there, auraone.com, so please visit there. You can get many other photos and also the movies available there, so please.
Can you send your PowerPoint to Catherine so she can send it to us?
Oh yeah, sure, of course. If there are any questions, please. No? Oh, later. Okay. Thank you for listening. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Kente. There you go. Are you going to do a slide presentation? You're up. All right, next is Catherine Music, PhD.
Okay, I thank you so much. I dived last year in Otawan, and it's the last wonderful ecosystem left in Okinawa. So this is, he didn't mention that this is the last one. This is quite unusual and beautiful. So we have a choice here, and I think the answer to the question is we all have to choose. Are we going to choose harm? Is this right? Harm or harmony? And so, next. That's me being a turtle when I was little.
There is a war going on in our beautiful Hawaiian waters. During the month of July, 25,000 soldiers from 23 nations will be dropping bombs, launching missiles, shooting torpedoes, exploding underwater mines, blasting deadly sonar, and wreaking havoc in our beautiful Hawaiian waters. RIMPAC war games also include 43 ships, 6 submarines, and over 200 aircraft. The Navy has permits to kill and harm 27 marine mammal species. Please contact our elected officials and ask that these horrible war games stop. Please do what you can to protect our beautiful watery world. Anyone sighting dead or hurt sea animals, oil and sewage slicks, or military debris, call the Surfrider Foundation at 337-9977 or email us at surfriderkauai@gmail.com. Peace and love for our ocean from the Surfrider Foundation and the Oceans for Peace Coalition.